So, welcome back to stage 2, Digitale Leute Summit. And this is the next one before a live podcast recording, and then it's done with the Digitale Leute Summit. So we're very happy that you are still here with us. And this talk will be about experimentation culture. Not what you see here, this is wrong, but will be gone in a few seconds. So for this talk, Rainer and Sandra will present a product management concept called the Value Engine. Learn in this talk how to create an experimentation culture where truly empowered product teams contribute to the company's strategy. Sandra is a managing partner at Valuerebels, and her background is in consulting and agile coaching. She found her passion for product management around a decade ago in the Agile Transition Team at Deutsche Telekom. Rainer is also a managing partner at Valuerebels and has over 10 years of experience as CPO and product leader for companies like zooplus, Real Digital, Westwing, Otto, and Bräuninger. Please welcome, with a warm round of applause, Sandra Hinz and Rainer Collet.
Dankeschön. Danke.
Danke.
All right, I was actually thinking about what joke do I do about my big bump when I get up here. But then I realized that the joke, like who wants to compete with my bump today, doesn't really apply because everybody seems to be quite sporty. Thanks for introducing, and really cool that you're joining our talk today. We're super excited to be here. Let's just say a few words about us. My name is Sandra, this is Rainer, and we are the co-founders and managing partners of the Valuerebels, a small consulting agency in product management. And we're here today to actually talk about some issues that we see over and over again. We have been in product leadership and product management positions for around a decade or so, each of us, for companies like zooplus, Westwing, Real Digital, Bräuninger, Just Eat Takeaway, just to name a few. And what we see is basically the same challenges over and over again, not or only partially getting addressed. And that's why we founded the Valuerebels, and that's why we're here today to actually share our experiences and to help contribute to solve that. So we really believe that the role of product needs to fundamentally change in the upcoming years in the industry. And we also see that there is a reason, obviously, why tech companies in the US are more successful than tech companies in Europe. And this is mainly because we believe that the role of product is misunderstood and the way how product is organized is not properly done. So, jumping right into it, I would say, what is it that frustrates us, Rainer?
Yeah, let's start with a real practical example, right? Imagine you're a product manager for an online shop, and you get asked, we need your homepage, looks a little bit outdated. How that would often be approached is that you actually start a requirements analysis, ask the marketing team, hey, what do you need to see on the homepage? Ask the customer service, what do you need to see on the homepage? Maybe business development. In the end, going to the legal department, is that all fine on the homepage? And you get a complete list of requirements. And because you're a super agile company, you actually slice that down in user stories and give that to your super agile Scrum team, right? And they start to develop it. And sprint after sprint, more and more functionality will be added. Like maybe after 5 months or something like this, you have all requirements met. And as you're a modern company, you do an A/B test, of course, right? Seeing, whoops, the new homepage is actually not really performing. Yeah. So how agile is that? Basically months of work wasted. And these kind of projects, like I think many of us saw quite often already. But let's go a little bit more into details.
Well, that's only some of the pain that is actually around there. We've been collecting a couple of quotes for us today to feel that pain a little bit together. And let's see if some of the quotes resonate with you as well as they do with us. So, first quote, everything is always a priority. We always want to do everything at the same time.
Strategy is a moving target, right? It seems to change even on a weekly basis.
We're too busy with small improvements and bug fixes, and we never have time to actually take care about the big things. Happened to me quite often already.
We have so many dependencies. Every team is working like not really aligned, and collaboration is just a mess and super hard.
And of course, there's never transparency about what happens and what the status of which initiative is.
And then often leaders come in and say, okay, I need to fix that. Here's a feature roadmap. Please do that.
Yep. Maybe not the best solution always. And as a result, we have way too many what we call orphaned MVPs, stuff that we never revisit again, only done once, and then it's there. And tech debt is piling up like hell.
And if we measure, then often just at the end, after all the effort is already done, right? And then we maybe justify it with some KPIs we're looking for.
Yeah. And there is no time and no capacity to actually work on developing a proper experimentation culture, which is a pity. What a mess, right? Yeah. So let me see quick hands. Who of you felt some of those or experienced? Yeah, damn it. Well, so that's what we have been dealing as well a lot with in the past. And we have allowed ourselves to cluster those statements a little bit for us today into 3 buckets. You don't need to follow where everything went now. And the 3 buckets should now reflect 3 main challenges that we also want to come back to by the end of the presentation and see if we're able to actually solve them or at least ease the pain there a bit with our experience and our guidelines that we want to present with you today. So challenge number 1, enable a value-driven way of working. We need to do that in order to ensure that we measure fast, get rid of the dependencies, and also get rid of the orphaned MVPs and technical debt. Challenge number 2, we need to make sure that we reflect our daily doing, or we reflect our strategy more in our daily doing. We need to combine it kind of with what we do in a practical manner every day, so that we can set our priorities properly, focus on them, and not switch direction every other week. And challenge number 3, we need to make sure that our leaders do a better job. They need to be able to lead with context rather than feature roadmaps. Make sure that they do not micromanagement, but instead take coaching opportunities actively, and also work on really developing an experimentation culture in the company. And when we look at this more from an organizational perspective, what we have seen or what we figured is that basically there are a lot of very well-known tools out there already when it comes to strategy, discovery, and delivery. And well-known frameworks, tools that we all have heard of, and that they are really used out there quite a lot. And they do work, but what we figured is that actually there is something missing somehow, especially when companies scale. And we've tried to combine our experience that we had in the last couple of years in many companies and with many teams. And we've developed something that we want to show you today that we call the Value Engine, a guideline to create more value fast at scale and basically combine those 3 in a practical manner, easy and scalable. So what is the Value Engine?
So looking at it at a glance, it seems to be a rather simple but company-wide Kanban board, showing all potentially impactful, valuable initiatives that we want to drive forward. However, don't take it so easy. So normally when we do something like this, creating transparency, giving coaching opportunities like that, it actually follows a huge culture shift, right? Like if you want to do that, you cannot do that like, okay, tomorrow we work like that. It's mostly a big change project to come into such a culture, but that kind of transparency should actually encourage that culture. Yeah. And if we look a little bit more into detail, something that maybe most of you already heard, keep in mind that we actually want to have a dual track, so that the same team caring about delivering what is in the backlog should also care about what goes into the backlog. Yeah. And that there's no one in the team that actually participates only in the one, but also not everyone are participating everywhere, always. Some people attending more the discovery work, others more the delivery work, but it's not two separate teams, it's one team. Yeah. So it's a dual track and it's a funnel. Means we see that so often that things get prioritized under high uncertainty at the very beginning, and when they got prioritized, we just do them to the end. Yeah? Instead of constantly reprioritizing based on the insights we've taken from that. So every step in that funnel is actually there to drive more insights and to get rid of those things that potentially have too low or not enough value contribution. Yeah? So we actually want to have 10 times more ideas that we can elaborate, to execute 10 times less, but only that 10% that then gives us 100 times more value. Yeah? So let's go through that steps. Every initiative starts as an idea, and we believe at the beginning it needs to be super easy to come up with ideas. We want to leverage the full creativity of the full organization. So ideas do not come only from the top management, they can come from everywhere and any time, not only on quarterly plannings like in a rush. Yeah? What do we do next quarter? It needs to be a continuous thing. And let's imagine we have 100 ideas incoming in a certain time frame. They need to be super easy, right? If there's already a business case attached or 100 pages PowerPoint deck, it's really hard to dive into that. Yeah? So we just want that every idea actually phrases really brief, short, what is the pain or the gain the idea is addressing. And then we need to continuously, ideally, at least at a weekly basis, what of these ideas we want to actually prioritize now for the next step, only for the next step. Yeah? So which ones actually match to the strategy that we have, and for which ones we actually have capacity. If you have a no on one of these answers, the ideas need to drop out already here. Yeah, and we don't need to save them. Like, if they are good, they will come back anyway. Yeah. And then we assign a lead to each idea that is really responsible to drive it forward. So if the lead is assigned, we can move it to the next column, what we call selected.
Mm-hmm. And in the selected column, let's say in this example, 30 out of 100 ideas make it to that selected column. Now, for the assigned lead of this idea, there is really only one single task in the selected column. But this task is very important, which is to assemble his or her team. This is something that we see going wrong a lot of cases, and then we end up in meetings where there is every other Friday a meeting in the afternoon because people don't have time before. So assemble a team that is as small as possible, but at the same time as diverse as possible, to really think this topic through conceptually in the next step. And make sure that this team is really not only driven by product and tech, so don't only include product people and engineers in there, but also make sure that there is somebody from design, an analytics guy, somebody from customer service, or from legal, if you have a legal topic and you really need those people on board. Because in the next phase, you will need all of this knowledge, right? And another hack from practice is probably don't only get their commitment on paper, But if you are the lead of this idea, make sure that you meet up with the people in one-on-ones, or at least have personal phone calls where you explain them, like, this is my expectation towards you. I will need you in the upcoming 1 or 2 weeks, every day from 9 to 12 in this meeting room. I blocked it. We need to focus because we're conceptually thinking this topic through. Make sure that everyone has time before you start. And only then move to the next phase on that board, which we call draft.
Yeah, and let's imagine we can draft maybe 20 out of these 30s. But first of all, we believe it needs to be a pull from that team, right? Like if management pushes more into the funnel does not get faster. Yeah. So stop starting, start finishing. And what to do in the draft now? In the draft phase is actually all about reducing the uncertainty we have about that. Yeah. So there are uncertainty buckets, like maybe you know them from Marty Kagan, right? Does it provide enough value? Is it really usable? Do people understand it? Can our engineers build it, or are we asking for zero gravity here? And will our stakeholders survive with that, or will our legal team be overwhelmed with lawsuits afterwards? Yeah? So viability. So in the draft phase, you can actually apply all that popular discovery techniques that are available, but please don't apply all of them. Apply the ones that make sense for your concrete initiative. Yeah? And for that, I think you can at least consider 4 sources of insights. First of all, check again against strategy. Does it really make sense for us? Second, look at your competitors. That's rather cheap, right? Learn from what they did. If nobody did it yet in your industry, there might be a reason for it. Maybe dangerous to do so. Yeah. Check your historical data. How many users will be affected, right? Get a quantitative glimpse on it. And also, of course, make sure you get quantitative insights and empathy with your users. So build prototypes and really show them to real users to at least detect problems of understanding. Yeah. And if you have all this available, then you have actually a concept that is clear what we really want to do now. We know our dependencies, who's needed to bring that live, and you need to, again, have the commitment from these dependencies. So don't start if team XYZ has another priority and can only do that in 2 months. And also be crystal clear on what you want to achieve in terms of which metrics you want to push with that ones, and which other metrics should not be suffering afterwards. Mostly it's trade-offs between metrics that we're doing, right? So if all that is explicitly clear, then we can go into the next phase, which we call hack.
Hack is always the word that usually is like in a lot of companies. Now what do we do? Do we build the solution?
An MVP?
An MVP? No, please not. Please withdraw, be a bit patient, and really try to do it a little bit different, because it pays off. And that is why we explicitly actually introduced the hack phase. Because it's not the goal yet to build a fully functional MVP. But the goal is to build something that we can measure the quantitative impact on production for a small amount of users first. So hopefully only half of the ideas make it until hack, because after the draft phase we figured out, hey, that concept is nice, but this one is a lot better, a lot more promising. So really also make sure that you kick out here at least half of the ideas that you started to think of. And hack, per definition, needs to be super, super short, because we're not reducing any uncertainty further here. We're actually willing to invest into technical debt. We sometimes call it that you take a loan from the technical debt bank, because you want to basically create insights early and fast now at this stage. But let's also be honest to ourselves. We're talking about experiments, and the experiments are potentially dangerous if you do them in an unlimited amount or an uncontrolled environment. So we call this to limit the blast radius. And what does that mean? Basically, we need to be able to release gradually. So to a small amount of users first, and then gradually increasing the amount of users. We need to be able to release frequently, right? Not only once a month or once a week, but whenever we want to. And we need to be able to measure what we do. So if you don't have your tracking installed, or if you don't have your dashboard ready, then please don't move into the next phase. Just get your measurements ready first before you move into the next phase. And only if you have that, you're basically ready and done with the hack phase. The hack is built. You could press the button. The definition of done here, and spoiler alert, we're not talking about an MVP, but to make it a bit more explicit and funny as well, we're talking about an MMP, a minimum measurable product, to really have this learning opportunity here. And then we move to ship.
So now, as you have really limited your blast radius and can basically allow even your junior developers to release without QA and staging on the live system, maybe just like we did that even in the past, right? Just a JPEG, not HTML, you can't click it, but you see how people try to interact with it, right? And we release a small amount of traffic on it. And we see what actually is needed in that design and whatnot. We can iterate over that design, improve that design, already start to code a few things that actually turn out to be working, right? And by this step-by-step pushing the before selected metrics into the right direction. And if they are good enough, I can maybe roll out a little bit more. Yeah, I can go from 1% to 5 or so, allowing me then to also dive into some segments. Does it work for mobile users, but not for desktop users maybe? Right? I can roll out mobile already faster. Or for new users versus existing users, right? Or different countries or whatever, right? Helping me to even push that metrics further and further and further until they are good enough that I can really roll that out to 100%. But again, we're willing to take more technical depth here to get all these insights faster. We want to still learn how it needs to be built. We don't want to invest into good code before we know if we need that code. Yeah, so we ramped up a lot of technical depth, but we're now live for 100% of the users. That's what we call an MVP, which comes after the MMP. And now everything is live, means we're ready, right? We're done.
Yeah, close it. Let's put another orphaned MVP into our system. Yeah. Now, one of the most important phases of this concept is coming into play. We call it the tune phase. What we have now is a situation where we have reduced the uncertainty to almost zero, right? We're also live, and we have reduced a lot of, leveraged a lot of value already. So we know how much it is worth. And now what we can do is we can make a conscious investment decision. We can also estimate a lot better how much would it cost now to build this properly. This was not possible at the beginning when we selected the idea, but is very often asked from the developers at the beginning already, where you have no clue exactly how it looks and how much will it cost in order to do it properly. So now is the time to really think about, do I want to invest into it, and how much is it worth it for me? So make a conscious investment decision, and if you feel like it's not worth it, then better trash it and don't move it to tune, but don't keep it in your system. Then trash it if it's not worth it. So make it a lovable product for everyone. What does that mean? Make it maintainable, scalable, secure, compliant, add features, and make it a maximum lovable product, another spoiler, for everyone, for the users, for the stakeholders, but also for the engineers and for the whole product team. And hopefully by the end of the whole funnel, you have dragged only 3 out of 100 ideas through this whole process and saved your company from making bad investments by dragging along the other 97 through the complete funnel. A bit timing and sizing, because we get asked a lot about this. So how long should it take until one idea moves through the funnel and is actually done. In our experience, it has proven to be quite nice if that we're talking about like 4 months cycle or 4 months initiatives. And remember, it's a dual track agile that we're talking about here. So if you look at one team, then one team, while they are taking care about one initiative through ship and tune, the same team can work on maybe 10 or 12 initiatives in draft and hack. So for every initiative, it's a step-by-step process, but per team, there's probably multiple tickets on such a board. And if you look at it from a company perspective, then, well, every team will have stuff that is maintenance work, bug fixes, smaller features. We call that pebbles and sand. That doesn't need to be here on this board. You can manage that in the team's backlogs. But in our experience, it is a good quote if 70% of the team's capacity is actually invested in the big initiatives, the big rocks that are monitored on such a company-wide initiative board. Going back to our example from the beginning.
Yeah, let's do that again, but this time the other way. Imagine you're a product manager and you should build a new homepage for a big online shop, right? Instead of doing a full, the beginning is the same, right? Lots of uncertainty. We don't know how the homepage needs to look like. Instead of you doing a huge requirements analysis, maybe you can just do a design sprint, pull a few people together into one room for 1 week, and have a ready tested prototype at the end of 1 week already. Yeah, you can upload the prototype, the JPEG, to the web server for maybe 1% of the users, see how they interact with that, and then start developing what really works. Yeah? So in my life, I saw that something that takes 5 months to develop is maybe by far not done yet, but after 1 month, you already see it starts to create value, although many things are still not done, right? Many things are still dummy or fake door tests, or you call that, right? After 1 month, you already start to create value, and of course, if that is achieved, that value, you go on with that, right? In that case, we would not discard it like most of the stuff. And it maybe also takes 5 months until everything is done, but since 4 months, you're already delivering additional value, right? So in the end here, we have actually, after 1 month, already value, which is a very different approach. And we also saved a lot of effort because lots of stuff turned out to be not valuable, right? Do I need these arrows left and right of a teaser slider? Do people really use that, or can I remove them already, right? Mm-hmm. So it's used to be also much faster in development than actually, if I do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, I said initially we want to come back to our 3 main challenges of the quotes that we've spoken out so bravely. So let's look at them again and close the cycle here. Are we able to fix or at least ease the pain and enable a more value-driven way of working by such a guideline and such a concept introducing that? I believe yes, and I think that it should be clear after this presentation that basically the value engine funnel is all about removing the less valuable initiatives along the way and only making sure that in the end the most valuable are really carried through all the steps. Another highlight of creating a value-driven way of working is that I think through making sure that there is a team assigned right before you start your first discovery, you're basically ensuring that you can gain speed there. And with that, you strengthen your discovery muscle. With that, you just have a lot more focus on valuable insights and work. And you avoid really shitty calendar scheduling as well. And what we did quite often in the past, for example, is by the end of the draft phase, we introduced what we called a draft review. So every initiative lead, which is mostly a product manager or a product owner, it was mandatory to come to the draft review and present his or her results from the draft phase to everyone else in the product department. And it's actually amazing how much you get challenged then still on your concept, on your dependencies and on your metrics, and how many more insights you gain, and how also the quality levels up in terms of conceptual output if you do such a mandatory meeting. And it's also fun and creates additional transparency. All of a sudden everybody knew what everybody else does. Measuring early and learning fast, right? But per definition, you cannot move from hack to ship if you don't have something measurable prepared. And that is a key asset, actually, that makes sure that you are more value-driven in your daily doing. And we're talking about maximum lovable products instead of orphaned MVPs, because we simply make sure that we have time for this, right?
So thus, do we now really also reflect on strategy, right? That was one of our promises in the beginning. Yeah, I think we do that in several situations. First of all, we said before we even move to selected, we make a strategy match. Yeah. So as we do not do that only in quarterly plannings, but ideally at least every week, strategy becomes at least already a weekly habit. Yeah, and people reflecting the company strategy frequently, right? Getting more into the daily business with your strategy, instead of something that the top management creates on some slides and nobody is aware of that. Yeah. You can even connect your, maybe you do that in Jira, you can connect your Jira issues on that board really to your OKRs if you have them. Right? Make clear this is meant to contribute to the following objectives, and these are the key results we want to push with it. Yeah. And in the ship phase, actually, you make reporting on it easy. You do not report which features become available. You report how much contribution to OKRs I was able to do up to here. So even there, you have, again, OKRs implemented during the quarter, not like in many companies at the beginning or at the end in a rush. And in the middle of the quarter, nobody can even knows anymore, like, what were the OKRs this quarter, right? Like, at the end of the quarter, maybe some people think again, oh, did we work on that, right? So we will really reflect strategy all the time, most probably daily.
Yeah. And are we making sure that leaders are doing a better job? To be honest, I believe that the value engine is a giant leadership toolbox, if you are using it right. And there are coaching opportunities in every corner that you could use as a leader. First of all, the value engine ensures that there is transparency now, right? So leaders know what's going on, and they can target their efforts and their competency in supporting the teams to remove boundaries, to remove obstacles. They can target their efforts a lot better, because there is not something like, oh, if I would have known that you are having that issue, I could have helped you earlier, because basically it's transparent and visible. You're encouraged to not have an overflow in the idea column. You are actively encouraged to actually select new ideas on a regular basis, ideally on a weekly basis. That's what we're trying to implement. And there is no need to press out feature roadmaps in a quarterly planning, because there you can focus more on the objective and on the strategy level. And additionally, you're selecting here during the quarter continuously. One of my favorite highlights is possibly that if the initiative lead is trying to find the best team constellation, then as a leader you can go in there and help assemble the team, help remove obstacles, help remove if there is conflicts in capacity. And if there is the same bottleneck over and over again, you might rethink your team topology, because that is maybe an underlying structural issue that you need to solve, and it's just identified here very early and transparent. By just having the hack phase, you're basically actively working on an experimentation culture, and as a leader, you can even support that by really making sure that your teams are able to limit the blast radius. Just make sure that the environment is right, and encourage your teams to actively work on easy and hacky experiments. Make sure that they feel comfortable with doing that. And in the ship phase, what we've done is super simple rule established as a Jira board. Every week, every initiative lead does an update on his or her ticket and just puts a small update on his or her weekly metrics. Where did they move? Did we move a needle into the right direction? As a leader, you can then start talking about metrics rather than only about the feature details in your one-on-ones. And you build trust by giving time to tune, right? Which is a really important thing to also close the cycle.
So we actually gone through that rather fast. We also conducted full-day workshops for each of these columns. Yeah? So don't believe it's very easy to just work like that from next week on. But we also have a YouTube channel where we add new videos from time to time. You can revisit them or just simply get in touch with us on LinkedIn or on whichever channel you like. We would love to hear your feedback, your concerns, your comments, your improvement ideas. And because we're shaping that constantly, right? The value engine is never ready. It evolves over time. And we would love to have more contributors that help us to make it also work for you. Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sandra and Rainer. And I believe we have time for one question. So if you want to ask a question, yes, please stand up and walk to the microphone. Please say your name, your title, and then your question.
Of course. My name is Mateus. I work at Heycater as a product designer. And we've been working in a similar mode with experimentation that goes through different stages. But what we've been seeing is that we've been swamped with pebbles and stones. So much that it's super hard to balance working on big ideas and managing maintenance of existing products. And I was wondering if you could lose a few words about how you would approach that, and if there is any advice that you have from the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's this is again a leadership task, right? If product would be easy, then we could even maybe automate it, right? Product is really hard. Yeah. And of course, it's judgment of product managers and also leaders to actually enable people to work on the big things. Yeah? So being busy with all tiny improvements all the time. You should also have from time to time for that. Like we said, 30% maybe every team can work on that. But 70% of the team capacity should be focused on clear things that contribute to strategy. Yeah? And I don't know where you get that small pebbles and sand from. Do they come out of the team or do they come from the outside, right? And again, the most important word of most product managers is no. Sorry, we have another priority and we want to focus.
And I think what additionally helps is simply the transparency. Then put the pebbles and the sand on there in the beginning. Yeah. But show off and say, okay, come on, this is what I'm working on. Help me prioritize.
Another question? Yes.
Hi, my name is Clara. I'm a product owner as well. So we've worked with a similar framework as well. The columns were called a little different, but the concept was similar. And what happened after a while is that the initiatives just piled up in the draft column because we underestimated the effort for concepts, and the product managers became the bottleneck. So I was wondering if you've seen something like that before and how you overcame that.
Well, we did, yeah. Experienced it by ourselves. When actually Rainer had the role of being the CPO, and I was one of his leads at zooplus. So that was the same situation actually, and it got stuck there, and everybody took longer for a draft. We all said like, okay, only start drafting if you know that you are done with it in 3-4 weeks, or I think something like that. But it piled up and took forever and ever and stretchy. I think there are two things important. First, really having a strong leader in that case that kind of said, no, nothing new, even though you want to, but now the funnel is full, you finish that first. And then making sure that we remove bottlenecks and trying to change the behavior of the people, because that's a change as well, right? If you're used to long-lasting chewy gum Friday projects, and then all of a sudden you're asked to do it different, that's a change, and that needs to be accompanied somehow.
You can also establish, like it's a Kanban board, right? You can establish work-in-progress limits. Say, hey, as long as that amount is here, nothing new can get in. And what actually turned out to be really good is that decision is done when we put to selected and assign a lead there. Maybe you can ask the lead, like, hey, that's my discovery budget for you. I think that's the amount of time I would like to give you to discover that, right? If you tell me, hey, that's by far too less, I need much more time, then maybe let's discard the idea already here, right? Mm-hmm. It's fine. Like I have an estimate on my own as a leader how much value could be inside. High uncertainty, of course. And I don't want that teams work 3 months on the discovery on this. Then I wouldn't even tell them right away that let's not do it. So also don't collect things there, right? Like drop them out. Like bad ideas come back, good ideas come back anyway. So that's very often that people said, yeah, but I told the stakeholder that I will put it in my backlog. Yeah, then be honest, don't put it in your backlog if you're not confident that you can do it.
Und ich glaube, ich muss hier leider unterbrechen, denn die Zeit rennt davon. Vielen, vielen Dank, Rainer und Sandra. Dankeschön.
Dankeschön.